My dears, today, the one who will share her story with us is my old and sweet friend, Margaret. She has always been a strong woman, but no one could have imagined the pain she would face after losing her beloved Robert. And the worst part wasn't the grief. It was the cruel blow that came right after, from where she least expected it. Her own son, James, with the coldness of a stranger, threw her out of the very house she and Robert had built with so much love. So sit down gently, prepare your tea, and come with me to hear this story of pain, betrayal, courage, and justice. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because today, it's the resilient heart of my dear friend Margaret that will lead the way.
Thank you, Nana Rose, always so dear and amiable towards me. My narrative commences with the recollection of my home's deafening silence. The walls once imbued with the subdued laughter of game nights and the comforting aroma of Robert's apple cake, now resonated with a glacial void. A void that mirrored the chasm tearing open within my chest, with every agonizing throb. Robert was no more. The earth had claimed his gentle smile and his cerulean eyes, so brimming with life until his final breath. Life, that perfidious current, relentlessly sweeps us away, indiscriminately claiming those we hold dearest. I still felt the tombstone's chill beneath my fingertips, the stone's coarse texture juxtaposed with the smoothness of his photograph etched there. That photograph stubbornly reminded me of the vibrant man he had been, not the pale shadow disease had consumed in recent months. I wanted to scream, to rend the silence with the agony that choked me, but tears were the only sound I could produce. Salty tears streamed down my wrinkled face, etching each line with the narrative of a life shared. I returned home to the house Robert and I had built together, brick by painstaking brick, dream by hopeful dream. Every corner of that dwelling held a memory, a cherished fragment of our shared narrative. The armchair on the porch where he would lose himself in history books, the garden he cultivated with such devoted care, the kitchen where we danced to the cadence of old tunes as we prepared our evening meal. Every object, every single space cried out his absence. James, my son, was in the living room, standing in front of the unlit fireplace. His face, typically jovial and full of energy, was taut, etched with an expression I couldn't decipher. Lauren, his wife, stood beside him, her arms crossed and her gaze distant. The silence between them was palpable, as heavy as the air before a storm. "Mom," James began, his voice hesitant. "We need to talk." I swallowed hard. I knew this conversation would not be easy. Ever since Robert's passing, James had been different, remote. He consistently avoided my gaze, replying in monosyllables, as though I were a stranger in his own abode. "Of course, dear," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "About what?" James drew a deep breath, as if bracing himself for a plunge into profound, dark waters. Lauren remained silent, observing the scene with a chilling composure that unnerved me. "About the house, Mom," he finally said. "About the future." My heart lurched. A chill snaked its way down my spine. The house. It was my sole remaining link to Robert. Our haven, our sanctuary. The house where our children had come of age, where countless birthdays and Christmases had been joyously marked, where we had shared every joy and every sorrow. The house that now seemed poised to become the crucible of fresh anguish. "What's with the house, James?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. He hesitated for a moment, averting his gaze. Lauren cleared her throat, as if prompting him to continue. "Mom, you know things are difficult for us," James began, his words coming out in a rapid, nervous rush. "Lauren and I have our own lives, our own responsibilities." "I know, dear," I replied, trying to keep calm. "But what does that have to do with the house?" James took a deep breath again, as if mustering all his courage. His eyes met mine, but they held none of the affectionate glint I so adored. There was only a calculated coldness, a gleam that sent shivers down my spine. "Mom," he said, his words cutting the air like knives, "I think it would be best for you to move out." The world seemed to halt for a moment. The walls of the room closed in, suffocating me. The air grew thin, almost impossible to breathe. A pervasive hum filled my ears, muffling James's words. "Move? To where? Where would I go without Robert, without the house, without my home? Move?" I managed to murmur, my voice almost inaudible. "Where to, James?" "It doesn't matter, Mom," he replied, his voice surprisingly firm. There are numerous options for those of your age. Perhaps an apartment. Or nursing home. Nursing home. The word resonated in my mind, heavy with dread. A vision of frigid, impersonal corridors and sorrowful, solitary faces overwhelmed me. No, I could not possibly go to such a place. But James, I tried to argue, tears beginning to stream unchecked down my face. This is my home. Our home. That was Dad's house, Lauren interjected, her voice icy and cutting. Now it's our turn to forge our future. It was as if a punch had landed squarely in my gut. Lauren's words were cruel, relentlessly unsparing. Yet, the pain they inflicted paled in comparison to the agony of betrayal, the torment of witnessing my own son ejecting me from my home, the very house Robert and I had painstakingly built with such profound love and sacrifice. Are you throwing me out? I asked, my voice choked with tears. James averted his gaze again. Lauren remained impassive, with her arms crossed and her face expressionless. We're not kicking you out, Mom, James replied, his voice sounding almost mechanical. We're just saying it would be better for you. Better for me? Or better for them? The answer was evident. They wanted the house. They coveted my home. They sought to be rid of me, the old widow who served as a constant reminder of death, of life's inherent fragility. A cold anger began to simmer within me. An anger that was inextricably intertwined with pain, sorrow, and despair. An anger that imbued me with the fortitude to breathe, to remain on my feet. I understand, I replied, my voice now steady despite the tears. I will leave. James and Lauren exchanged a quick glance, surprised by my answer. Perhaps they expected resistance, please, a dramatic scene. But I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. When? James asked, his voice still cautious. Tomorrow, I replied without hesitation. Tomorrow morning, I'm leaving this house. I turned and slowly ascended the stairs, each step an arduous effort. I needed to reach my room, gather my belongings, and prepare myself for exile. However, before exiting the room, I cast a final glance behind me. James and Lauren were still there, standing before the extinguished fireplace, their somber silhouettes outlined against the dim light of the window. In that moment, a silent vow took root in my heart. A vow that they would rue their actions. A vow that I would not depart from that house empty-handed. A vow that justice would be exacted, even if it meant confronting my own son. I took my suitcase from the closet, an old one Robert had given me as a gift on our first trip together. I opened it on the bed, its worn fabric revealing the telltale signs of time and travel. I began to pack some clothes, a few personal belongings, Robert's photographs. But at the bottom of the suitcase I found something more. A thick sealed envelope in Robert's handwriting. My heart pounded. I grasped the envelope with trembling hands, feeling the weight of the paper, the weight of the secret it held. I opened it cautiously, delicately breaking the seal. Inside, I found some documents and a handwritten letter. I commenced reading the letter, Robert's words coursing through my mind like an ancient, familiar melody. He knew. He had always known. He was aware that James might succumb to avarice, that Lauren could sway him. He knew I would require protection even after his death. The letter unveiled a codicil, a particular provision Robert had inserted to safeguard me. Should I be subjected to ill treatment, or driven from the residence, James would forfeit all entitlement to the estate. A bitter smile played on my lips. Robert, my beloved Robert, ever mindful of me, ever shielding me, even from beyond the grave. I retrieved the documents and scrutinized them meticulously. There it was, emblazoned in block capitals, the clause that would fundamentally alter everything. The clause that would empower me to contend, to assert my defense. The clause that would transmute my suffering into retribution. But there was more. There was also the mortgage agreement. The agreement that Robert had compelled me to sign as a co-owner years ago. An agreement that James and Lauren seemed to have forgotten. I snapped my suitcase shut, my heart brimming with a cold, unyielding determination. I would not depart from that house as a victim. I would emerge as a warrior, poised to contend for what was rightfully mine, poised to reveal to James and Lauren the true meaning of repentance. The following day, I quietly departed the house, bearing solely my suitcase and the envelope containing the documents. Yet, deep within, I also bore the promise of a nascent beginning. One destined to be shaped by justice, vengeance, and perchance the burgeoning of a new affection. The stillness of the hotel room was a stark contrast to the maelstrom of emotions that assailed me. The neutral walls and nondescript furnishings offered no solace, merely a cold reminder of my new reality, an existence bereft of the familiarity of home, of Robert's constant presence. Nevertheless, solitude was not my sole companion. Determination, this newfound driving force, coursed through my veins, kindling a warmth within me. The cessation of financing payments, a calculated and audacious decision, was merely the initial gambit in an intricate game of chess. James and Lauren, mired in their self-serving myopia, had yet to fully grasp the profound magnitude of the blunder they had committed. They perhaps envisioned that I would readily capitulate, that the anguish of bereavement would utterly incapacitate me. What they failed to account for, however, was the profound resilience that lay concealed beneath the apparent fragility of the 67-year-old widow. Time, once an implacable foe that had reaped my husband's life, now transformed into a strategic ally. With each passing day, the pressure on James and Lauren escalated, curtailing their scope for action. The gnawing anxiety of uncertainty, coupled with the specter of imminent loss, would inexorably erode their illusory sense of security. The attorney, an old friend of Robert's, would serve as my counsel and spokesperson. He possessed the requisite dispassion and objectivity to navigate the turbulent waters of the law, adeptly translating my emotions into unassailable arguments. The family meeting, poised to serve as the arena for the final confrontation, was being meticulously prepared. The doorbell reverberated through the small apartment, a jarring sound that shattered the afternoon's quiet. I had not been expecting any visitors. Prudence, a steadfast companion since my departure, impelled me to peer through the peephole. The figure standing there, a familiar face shrouded in apprehension, took me by surprise. It was Mr. Oliveira, Robert's erstwhile neighbor, a man of serene countenance and discerning gaze, with whom Robert used to engage in lengthy discussions on the porch. For an instant I wavered, a palpable distrust pervading the atmosphere like a thick mist. What could possibly have drawn him to my door? Had James dispatched him? Doubt, that insidious serpent, hissed in my ears. Yet, something in Mr. Oliveira's countenance, a meld of concern and compassion, persuaded me to open the door. "Mrs. Margaret," he greeted, his deep voice heavy with solemnity. "I need to speak with you. It concerns Robert." A shiver ran down my spine. Robert's name, uttered with such reverence, stirred in me a wave of conflicting emotions. Longing, pain, but also a flicker of curiosity. I invited him in, offering him a glass of water as I braced myself for what was to come. Mr. Oliveira settled onto the sofa, his gaze fixed on his gnarled hands. A profound silence enveloped us, a quietude laden with unspoken secrets and impending revelations. At length, he drew a deep breath and commenced speaking. "Robert was a good man, Mrs. Margaret," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "A loyal friend, a considerate neighbor. But he also carried a heavy burden." Intrigued, I tilted my head, prompting him to continue. What burden could this be that Robert, my Robert, had secretly borne? "He confided in me," Mr. Oliveira continued, regarding the apprehension he harbored about the future. He was concerned that James, unduly swayed by Lauren, might make impetuous decisions that would prove detrimental to her. Mr. Oliveira's words confirmed my suspicions, solidifying Robert's portrayal as a provident and affectionate man. Yet, there was an additional layer to his narrative, an enigma that had not yet unfolded. Robert didn't entirely trust James to oversee the family's enterprises, he explained. He presented to me documents, contracts, and information regarding investments he had undertaken on his behalf, Mrs. Margaret. Investments of which James is unaware. A jolt coursed through my body. Secret investments? Could Robert, always so unequivocally transparent with me, have kept something of such magnitude under wraps? The initial shock, however, quickly morphed into a profound realization. Robert, ever the thoughtful one, had once again prioritized my welfare, ensuring my financial security for the years to come. He asked me, Mr. Oliveira continued, to hand these documents over to you in the event of anything happening to you. He wanted to ensure your protection. With trembling hands, Mr. Oliveira pulled a leather portfolio from his briefcase. He opened it, unveiling an array of documents, bank statements, investment contracts, property deeds. The intricate nature of the information was quite daunting, yet the profound gratitude I felt for Robert was boundless. Robert was an astute man, Mr. Oliveira concluded. He had laid all the groundwork. Now, Ms. Margaret, you possess the wherewithal to fight. However, you must exercise prudence. Mr. Oliveira's words resonated as a warning. The impending battle would prove arduous, demanding shrewdness and an unyielding resolve. But I was not alone. I had Robert's legacy, the support of his friends, and the fortitude of my own resilience. Robert's unanticipated present, disclosed via Mr. Oliveira, not only fortified my legal standing but also introduced an additional layer of intricacy to the unfolding events. The paramount concern now was how to leverage this newfound intelligence strategically without prematurely tipping my hand. The element of surprise indispensable to my strategy had to be meticulously safeguarded. Now reflect on how this unforeseen turn of events bears a striking resemblance to a concealed component within an intricate jigsaw puzzle. The revelation of this segment not only completes the overarching image but simultaneously unveils novel connections and emergent possibilities. Consequently, Robert's surreptitious financial dealings constituted a new trajectory, a critical implement in my relentless pursuit of justice. The absence of any contact from James subsequent to my departure was as eloquent as an impassioned oration. Yet this silence was far from a symbol of triumph for him. Rather, it resonated as the unmistakable harbinger of a gathering storm. For ultimately, despair, akin to water finding its own level, inexorably charts its path. Let us now conceptualize the situation as a game of billiards. My initial gambit, the cessation of payments, had struck the first ball, poised to trigger a cascade of events whose ultimate culmination, though uncertain, was nevertheless inescapable. Instead of dwelling on speculation regarding his next moves, I focused on consolidating my position. The documents provided by Mr. Oliveira constituted a hidden trove, a goldmine of possibilities that required careful and intelligent exploration. It was thus imperative to decipher the language of numbers, unravel the intricacies of investments, and translate the dry legalities of contracts into compelling arguments. To this end, I enlisted the help of Mrs. Helena, a former colleague of Robert's, a retired accountant with a sharp mind and a generous heart. Donna Helena, with the patience of a seasoned educator and the acute perceptiveness of a detective, applied herself to the undertaking with fervent dedication. Together, we meticulously scrutinized banking statements, investment portfolios, and property deeds. Each revelation was akin to a critical piece seamlessly integrating into the elaborate mosaic of Robert's inheritance, unveiling a more comprehensive tableau of his foresight. We discovered, for instance, that Robert had meticulously constituted a trust fund in my name, a robust financial bulwark engineered to insulate me from any unforeseen contingency. At this juncture, let us consider the paramount importance of information in a contention of this nature. Knowledge, much like a compass in a dense, trackless wilderness, informs our judgment, enabling us to traverse uncertain terrains with enhanced certainty and assurance. James, utterly oblivious to the existence of these investments, found himself at a considerable disadvantage, a mariner adrift on the high seas, bereft of a chart or a lodestar. Moreover, the examination of the documents unearthed something even more astonishing, a substantial and meticulously planned life insurance policy, which Robert had procured years prior, designating me as the beneficiary. This gesture, so emblematic of his considerate and prescient nature, underscored his profound concern for my welfare, even in his absence. Conversely, unearthing the life insurance policy prompted me to contemplate the inherent ephemerality of existence and the paramount importance of cherishing every moment, every encounter, every gesture of affection. Life, much like a flickering flame, can be extinguished at any given moment, leaving behind naught but a lingering sense of yearning and cherished memories. Nevertheless, this introspection did not deter me from my principal objective. On the contrary, it fortified my resolve to contend for what was just, to honor Robert's legacy, and to safeguard my future. The family gathering, the moment of truth, was fast approaching. Envisage the meeting as a theatrical arena, where each participant would perform their designated role, ultimately unveiling their true intentions. Fortified by truth and justice, I would step onto the stage with the unwavering composure of one who understands they are aligned with the correct trajectory of history. James and Lauren, inextricably ensnared in the intricate web of their own avarice, would inevitably face the profound repercussions of their conduct. Dr. Fonseca's office, bathed in the soft twilight, exuded an aura of solemnity and contemplation. His proposal, delivered with a surgeon's calm precision, reverberated in my mind with the force of distant thunder. An audacious gambit, no doubt, yet imbued with a relentless logic that compelled me to consider it seriously. Rather than an immediate, head-on confrontation, Dr. Fonseca advocated a more circuitous path, a strategic detour designed to maximize the truth's impact at the opportune moment. The core idea was essentially to give James enough rope to hang himself. Rather than immediately disclosing the existence of the codicil and the concealed assets, we would allow him to drown in his own lies and manipulations. This strategic withdrawal, seemingly paradoxical, aimed to solidify our position by amassing undeniable proof of his perfidy and, consequently, undermine his case before the family. Another pivotal element of Dr. Fonseca's proposal was the utilization of a neutral figure as a mediator. Such a third party, devoid of emotional ties to the familial conflict, could facilitate communication and ensure an atmosphere of impartiality during the meeting. Consider, for instance, a referee in a soccer match, whose function is to ensure adherence to the rules and prevent the game's inherent passion from escalating into violence. Furthermore, mediation would enable James to express his motivations and regrets, should they exist, without the pressure of a direct accusation. This dialogical space, however discomforting it might prove, could be instrumental in healing familial wounds and reconstructing severed bonds. Nevertheless, it is imperative to underscore that forgiveness, while undoubtedly desirable, should not compromise justice. Dr. Fonseca's proposal epitomized a multifaceted approach, seamlessly blending legal astuteness with profound human empathy. It transcended the mere objective of prevailing in a legal skirmish. Rather, it sought to safeguard the family's integrity and honor Robert's memory. The metaphor of the weaver, deftly interweaving threads of disparate hues and textures to forge an intricate and harmonious tapestry, aptly illustrates the inherent complexity of this undertaking. The jarring peal of the telephone, rupturing the afternoon's quietude, resounded like a detonation deep within my very core, presaging the dawn of a new chapter in this intricate contention. It was James's faltering voice, fraught with a discernible anxiety that starkly contradicted his prior arrogance. The meticulously crafted lure had yielded the intended result. That telephonic communication, far from signifying a capitulation, constituted the inaugural act of a complex drama, wherein veracity and dissimulation would perform a tense, intricate pas de deux. The formal invitation to the meeting, meticulously crafted with the precise frigidity of a legal instrument, represented a pivotal turning point, a familial Rubicon to be traversed with no prospect of retreat. That document, with its austere lines and impersonal parlance, stood in stark contrast to the warmth of bygone family gatherings, the tight embraces and shared peals of laughter around the dinner table. Now that very table would transform into a battlefield, and words, the armaments of a simmering conflict. Given this backdrop, the selection of the mediator proved to be a strategic element of paramount importance. Dr. Elisa, a renowned psychologist possessing vast experience in resolving familial disputes, possessed the requisite acumen and neutrality to navigate the tumultuous waters of emotions. Her presence, like a beacon amidst the fog, would impart clarity and objectivity to the discourse, preventing resentment and bitterness from obscuring the pursuit of truth. Above all, Dr. Elisa represented a voice of reason, a counterbalance to the exacerbation of tempers that would inevitably surface. Yet, the outward composure I maintained belied a maelstrom of emotions within. The anticipation of the impending confrontation, the sting of betrayal, and the precariousness of the future all coalesced deep within my psyche, necessitating absolute emotional mastery. It was, therefore, imperative to channel this formidable energy into the meticulous preparation for the meeting, scrutinizing the documents, preempting James's and Lauren's potential arguments, and fortifying my unwavering resolve. Much like an athlete meticulously honing their readiness for a pivotal contest, I zeroed in on every minute detail, envisioning triumph and systematically dispelling any detrimental thoughts. The selection of the meeting venue also held profound symbolic significance. Dr. Fonseca's office, with its inherently neutral and professional ambience, constituted an impartial ground, unburdened by the memories and emotional associations of the family home. Sidestepping the very arena of the original conflict was paramount to fostering an environment conducive to constructive dialogue and resolution. Consider, now, how this judicious choice parallels that of a mediator seeking neutral ground to facilitate negotiations between contending parties. The family gathering was poised to be a pivotal moment, a true watershed in my journey. The truth, like a sharpened sword, would be laid bare, exposing James and Lauren's actions to the full glare of justice. Yet, victory would not be measured solely in legal or financial terms. The true triumph would reside in the restoration of my dignity, the preservation of Robert's memory, and the prospect of rebuilding familial bonds, albeit in an altered form. The meeting room, bathed in the subdued light filtering through the partially open blinds, transformed into a stage where masks would fall, revealing the true faces behind the familiar facade. The choice of attire for that day, ostensibly inconsequential, held profound symbolism. I opted for an understated yet elegant dress in a muted shade that conveyed seriousness and determination, but without ostentation. The image I sought to project was that of a resilient woman, not a fragile victim. Nevertheless, the mutedness of the ensemble contrasted with the pearl necklace Robert had gifted me on our wedding anniversary, a silent amulet that connected me to his memory and to the promise of justice I had made. Furthermore, the silence that settled in the room once everyone had taken their seats was more eloquent than any discourse. The palpable tension in the air, the exchange of furtive glances, the nervous gestures, all bespoke the imminence of a confrontation. James, his countenance taut and his posture defensive, betrayed the consuming apprehension that gnawed at him. Lauren, beside him, maintained a facade of calculating coolness, yet her restless eyes belied her vulnerability. That silence, therefore, was the ominous harbinger of a storm poised to erupt. Dr. Elisa's serene presence exuded an aura of calm and control. Her gentle voice, upon commencing the meeting, fostered candid discussion and the pursuit of constructive resolutions. Her adeptness at cultivating an atmosphere of trust was paramount in ensuring that emotions could be articulated without undue escalation and that divergent perspectives could be heard with due deference. Now consider how mediation mirrors the artistry of a gardener who prunes away the weeds and cultivates the blossoms, striving for equilibrium and harmony within the garden. As the meeting progressed, however, the masks began to crumble. The veiled accusations, the evasive justifications, the suppressed tears all contributed to an increasingly lucid portrait of the intricate nature of familial relationships. The truth, akin to a sunbeam piercing through dense clouds, slowly began to illuminate the obscure recesses of that history. Yet, the full revelation was still to come, and its ultimate impact would hinge upon each individual's fortitude in squarely facing the repercussions of their deeds. In that room, the silence subsequent to the presentation of the evidence was almost palpable, dense as the air before a storm. Robert's words, meticulously transcribed in documents and recordings, reverberated with an overwhelming force, stripping away the masks and laying bare the unvarnished truth. James, once imposing in his arrogance, visibly recoiled beneath the crushing weight of the evidence, his resolve dissipating like sand through his fingers. Lauren, once impassive, unveiled the fragility beneath her cold exterior, silent tears tracing paths down her face, mute witnesses to a crumbling house of cards. That moment, suspended in time, was a microcosm of the human condition, a mirror reflecting our capacity for good and evil, for love and betrayal. Greed, unbridled ambition, and selfishness had woven an intricate web of deceit, ensnaring James and Lauren in a labyrinth of consequences. The house, a symbol of a home shattered by avarice, became the stage for a painful yet necessary reckoning. James's plea for forgiveness, uttered amidst sobs and genuine remorse, resonated with a sincerity that touched my heart. The pain of betrayal still throbbed, like a fresh wound, but compassion, the driving force of a life built on love and resilience, compelled me to offer an outstretched hand. Forgiveness, however, did not imply the abdication of justice. Trust, once shattered, demanded a long and arduous process of reconstruction. The decision not to relinquish power to retain the reins of the situation was not fueled by retribution, but rather by the imperative to safeguard my future and Robert's legacy. The dwelling, far more than a mere aggregate of masonry and lumber, epitomized the repository of a shared existence, an emotional sanctuary warranting preservation. This painstakingly acquired autonomy could not be forfeited for the sake of an untimely reconciliation. Robert's true legacy, the treasure that transcends material worth, was the lesson of perseverance, integrity, and unconditional love. That heritage, imparted through his actions and words, would serve as the beacon guiding my steps and James's on the journey of rebuilding our familial bonds. The path ahead would be long and arduous, fraught with challenges and obstacles, yet hope, that faint flame which never entirely extinguishes, would remain alight, illuminating the gloom. Thus, the narrative of the house of betrayal and of forgiveness evolves into a timeless account of the intricate nature of the human condition, underscoring the paramount importance of truth, justice, and compassion. The true endeavor, the profound challenge, commences now, to transmute pain into profound insight, resentment into genuine reconciliation, and Robert's memory into a lasting legacy of love that transcends generations. The future, like an unblemished canvas, awaits the deliberate brushstrokes of our choices, the vivid hues of our actions.